So I got this job at Foley Laundry actually 2 years ago. So I spent a summer with them. These are people I knew and I worked for. But the day before I was set to start, I actually received a call from one of the head partners of at Foley and Laundry saying that we've been seeing everything that you've been doing and we need you to come into the office for a meeting. So at first, I thought that this would just be an opportunity to tell them about what's happening in Gaza, about to tell them that I was worried for my family in Lebanon and my extended family, in Palestine and in Gaza. And unfortunately, when I went to the meeting, it was not that environment at all. It was a very hostile environment in which they interrogated me about my social media related to Palestine, about my advocacy, about even SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, about my background and identity. They actually had a packet with them like this that had screenshots of my social media, about screenshots of speeches and transcripts of speeches and about my background. And they just interrogated me about it, like word for word, line by line. And I think what was the most jarring about this interrogation is that they actually asked me about my father and where he works and his background. So ultimately, they framed my advocacy for Palestine as supporting terrorism, which, as we know, is a very racist smear with no factual backing. And it really goes back to kind of the post 9/11 age where Muslims and Arabs, again, are demonized and anything that they do as being terrorists. And I think this was especially problematic considering there were other people at the firm who actually advocated for Israeli violence against Palestinians and spoke very openly for Israel and advocating for Israeli violence again. And that shows that double standard again, in that they were not interrogated or called into a meeting. Ultimately, they were not fired. So I was fired for speaking up for my Palestine advocacy, for speaking up even for my family and for our people back home as well. At that time, again, we were losing thousands of people are being massacred. So I thought, what can I do at this time to advocate for my family and for our community and for my people back home? So that's when I decided to not only speak out, but fight back and pursue a lawsuit, because I wanted to set a precedent to show that these law firms cannot discriminate against us without accountability. That people who look like me or anybody that advocates for Palestine cannot be tossed aside simply for speaking up for human rights, and that we will have our justice. So after they finished their investigation, we were able to file it in federal court. So we just filed in federal court our complaint of discrimination for racial and ethnic background and religious background against Foley and Laudner for, again, discriminating against me and firing me for speaking up for Palestinian rights and for speaking up for my family, especially considering that this standard was only applied to me, one of the only Muslim Arab female associates in the entire law firm nationwide. And for me to be the only one that was framed as advocating for terrorism and interrogated and fired in this way, when there are many others that are expressing their opinion as well, shows that they were discriminating and targeting me again. I have no regrets about speaking up for Palestine or advocating the way I did. I think especially in this time, silence is complicity.